Hello everyone, welcome to one of the final two videos for our end of the year wrap up. So hopefully you've been catching up because every day this week we posted a video with like game of the year, movies of the year, TV shows, top TV shows of the year, top songs of the year, our honorable mentions and disappointments for our albums of the year. And so now, right now, we're doing my personal top 12 albums of 2017, and then tomorrow on New Year's Eve, Tyler's putting up his top 20, I believe is what he's doing, albums of 2017. And we've been reiterating this and saying this all week, and even the last couple weeks. This has been one of the best years for entertainment, not just music, but like movies, TV, games in general. Everything has been phenomenal, and albums hasn't been any different. This was the most difficult list for me to come up with. I was really tempted to just do top 20 and just include every album that I listened to this year, but that felt disingenuous, so I've narrowed it down to 12, because I didn't want to do, I wanted a little more than 10, but I didn't want to do 15. So let's hop into it. So, at number 1, I have Firewind with their album, Immortal. So this album, I really like. I do really like a lot of this album. I think there are good, and especially the first 5 tracks are all gold. You know, especially like Hands of Time. It was an extremely catchy chorus and probably one of the catchiest leads out there. I really like Live and Die by the Sword. Ode to Leonidas is another cool song where I like the sort of intro, and it's just the first 5 songs are just awesome. It's kind of the rest of the album that kind of loses me a little bit. But the first 5 songs are so good that I think it kind of picks up the slack for it. And it's like, Firewind's just a great power metal album. They're a great like middle of the pack power metal album because like they're not super cheesy like other bands are. And it's really nice. And so that's kind of why I have them here at number 12. At number 11, we have Beast in Black with their self-titled debut album, Beast in Black. This album suffers from the same problems that the Firewind album does, in which is the first 4 tracks on this album are really good. The standout tracks alone are Blind and Frozen, Born Again, and their self-titled song Beast in Black. They're all incredible songs, and I really like them. It's just like some other songs are just weird, Crazy, Mad, Insane's kind of really cheesy, and Blood of the Lion's okay, and that song Zod the Immortal's pretty alright. But like that's kind of all I can go as further as saying about the rest of the album, so it's okay. But those 3 songs, like Blind and Frozen, Beast in Black, and Born Again, are 3 of the best power metal songs I've ever heard. With the soaring vocals and the ultra catchy choruses and just like whatnot. I just love the sound of this band, and it's that cheesy power metal that just brings a smile to your face, and it can't help but just be happy listening to it, which is part of the reason why I really enjoy this album. Number 10, I have Bloodlust, which is Body Count's new album. Body Count's a band that surprises me. That surprised me their last 2 albums. Manslaughter was an album that like we listened to, and I was like, wow, this album is actually really good. And then I kind of like wrote, and then even after that, I wrote off of this album. And then this album came out, and this album is extremely good. I mean, Civil War, The Ski Mask Way, and This Is Why We Ride are all great songs. And because it's not just like, oh, we're just going to do hard rap lyrics over top of like metal guitars. It's like, for example, This Is Why We Ride is like this, almost kind of deep thing talking about gang life and inner city culture and like stuff like that, and it's actually super cool. And yeah, sure, there's the typical things you would expect from a rapper like Ice-T. I mean, the songs like No Lives Matter, Bloodlust, and Black Hoodie are kind of examples of that. But this album does get kind of deep and get kind of cool, and there's all kinds of guest appearances. I mean, Max Cavaleras, who is of formerly of Lex Sepultura, is in All Love Is Lost. Dave Mustaine shows up and does the intro of Civil War. But this album, I think the selling point of this album is that it's super catchy guitar work. I think of No Lives Matter. The main riff of that song is one of the catchiest riffs I've ever heard. And it's just so bouncy, and it's like I could see that working at a metal show, and I could see that working at a hip hop show, just people getting into it, and that's awesome to me. And it's, again, I should just stop being surprised by body count, because they're really good. It's kind of easy to write them off, but it's actually some fairly good stuff. At number 9, I've Unleash the Archers with Apex. Unleash the Archers stepped up their game with this album. You know, I mean, right off the bat, even with the opening track, Awakening, it's just these really intricate, complex, tight-sounding guitars on top of the vocals, which the vocals are great because, you know, the band has a... You know, it has a female vocalist. Let me look up her name really quick, but I'm going to keep talking while I do it. You know, they have, you know, Brittany Hayes is a great vocalist, but she doesn't do, like, the operatic thing, which is cool. You know, because that's, like, kind of like what most female singers do. But then other songs like Cleanse the Bloodlines, it's really cool. 10,000 Against One. You know, Apex, the title track. Call Me Immortal. There's a lot of really good songs, and I've been describing this band like this way a lot lately. I mean, especially this album. It sounds like, you know, if a better, slightly better sounding Lizzie Hale sung for Holy Grail. And that's, like, awesome, because the guitars, like, all these dual guitar harmonies are complex, and it's just like, again, this Unleash the Archers, I mean, I definitely think it's a step up from their last album. So hopefully they can continue on this, because this was a phenomenal album. Number 8, I have Trivium with Sin in the Sentence. This was another big surprise, because, I mean, Silence in the Snow was, with the exception of a few songs, was a bit of a letdown. So to put out the Sin in the Sentence, which basically is kind of capturing everything that Trivium's ever been, was super cool. I mean, the title track alone is a great track, and it's, you know, up there as one of my more favorite tracks of the year. You know, Beyond Oblivion gets super heavy at times, and that's the thing. This album gets heavy again. You know, with, like, Sever the Hand, the middle section is, like, super, super heavy. And again, I said Beyond Oblivion, the wretchedness inside's heavy, and just, like, some of, like, the best songwriting that Trivium's done. Like, they have the heaviness, like I just said, and they have, like, the old school, like, Trivium stuff, like Thrown into the Fire and Betrayer, but then they have, like, The Heart from Your Hate, which is a radio song, but it works. It doesn't feel misplaced, and it seems everything just works so much better on this album. The guitar tone's beefier, everything's faster, everything's heavier. Matt Heafy, in general, sounds better. There's a couple spots where I'm like, oof, okay, vocals are a little flat, but, I mean, you can't blame him for trying new things. And so, this is definitely a step up for Trivium. I hope they continue on this kind of path going forward with their albums here on out. At number... I believe we're at number 7. Let me double check. At number 7, yep, I was right. We have Iced Earth with Incorruptible. So, Iced Earth Incorruptible, it's a great counterbalance to Plagues of Babylon. Plagues of Babylon was this big, epic, sweeping album that I just thought was really cool. But this one is definitely a bit more of the in-your-face, thrashy style, in spots. Definitely a little bit more in-your-face style Iced Earth album. I mean, Seven-Headed Whore, the first track they put out, is a perfect example. Or Defiance is another song where it's like, boom, this is just like, there's nothing super, super melodic about it. It's just awesome. But then they do have the melodic side. I mean, they have Ravenwing, which is awesome. Ghost Dance, which is a really, really cool instrumental song. But then it also has my favorite song, which is Black Flag. Black Flag is a great song. And I just like how the song kind of just flows, and there's not really like a set pattern. It just kind of happens. Or, you know, Great Heathen Army. Like, this is another good Iced Earth album. I'm not 100% sure if it's as good as Plagues of Babylon, but I do thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, it's just Iced Earth doing what Iced Earth does best. And I think, and you can't go wrong with that. At number 6, I have Enspherum with Two Paths. It's another, I think, great album. Again, maybe not as good as the One Man Army, which was my album of the year 2 years ago, but there's still a bunch of good songs. Like, you know, the title track, Two Paths, is great. For Those About to Fight for Metal is a great, like, kind of, well, it's not the opening track, but it's a great, like, opening sort of number. You know, Feast with Valkyries is a cool typical Ensfirm song. And then you have Don't You Say, which I think is probably the standout song from this album because it's just so catchy and has clean vocals. And it's like, Ensfirm experimented a few times on this album with non-chanty clean vocals, and I think it works out because I just think that, again, they're evolving. That's one thing that you can say about Ensfirm is that, especially with their last couple albums, they're not afraid to just kind of branch out and kind of be a little bit more. Especially, again, songs like King of Storms, Way of the Warrior, and again, like I said, Two Paths is a great song. I just think that this album it's good because it's nice to see Ensfirm evolving as a band. That they're not just being like, yeah, this is what we do, we're going to keep doing it. At number 5, I have Winter Sun with The Forest Seasons. Yeah, this was an album that I didn't have a lot of hope going for, and even though I still love albums I still love Time 2, and I still love not Time 2 ain't come out yet. I still love their first 2 albums, but I've been kind of put off on Winter Sun for a while just because again, the promises of Time 2 happening and then it never coming, and then it's here, we're putting out this album, and I'm like, oh great, it's but it's not Time 2. But I was kind of foolish in thinking that because this is a great album. It's only 4 songs, but the shortest song is 12 minutes, and it's great. The first 2 songs are, I think, the best ones. Awaken from the Dark Slumber and The Forest That Weeps. Awaken from the Dark Slumber has some of those typical extremely catchy not chant, but gang vocal parts that Winter Sun does, kind of similar to Sons of Winter and Stars. And The Forest That Weeps has probably the single coolest melodic section of a song that I've heard in a long time. That's in the middle section with the guitars and whatnot, and how that builds and it changes. It's awesome. And even the last 2 songs, even though I think the first 2 songs shine, Eternal Darkness and Loneliness are also great songs. And this is a little bit of a different album because it's a little, the guitar is a little less important. That's one thing looking at, for the most part, with Time 1. Time 1, there was always guitar riffs and there was the orchestra in the background. Now, it definitely seems like the guitar in the orchestra, it's not like guitar orchestra, it's all one thing, which is super nice. And, here's the thing, as long as Winter Sun keeps putting out good albums, I could maybe be okay with Time 2 not happening soon, but I do want Time 2 to happen sooner rather than later. At number 4, it's technically an EP that came out this year, but I have The Solar System by Epica. This is a bunch of songs that didn't make it onto what's the album? It's the Holographic Principle, but don't make you think that these songs are bad. Some of these songs I think are better than some of the songs on the Holographic Principle. The title track is great. I love the verse riff and Simone's vocals in there, and then the the bridge to the chorus right after that's also really good. I like the dynamic between the vocals and the guitars. And songs like Architect of Light and Wheel of Destiny are also both really good songs. And there's not really too much to say with this because it's Epica doing Epica. Epica's has become maybe my favorite band, and this album's part of the reason. It's just here, even on songs that we don't think were necessarily good enough to make it on the Holographic Principle, these songs, it's still some of the best stuff to come out this year. And it's not their best stuff, at least in their eyes. It's this isn't. We can do better than this, and it's still again, it's my number. What are we up to? It's number 4 album this year, so it's really good. And I almost didn't include this album because it was an EP, but then just everything about it is so good, and I'm like, you know what? This album's still gonna make it. So that was number 4. At number 3, I have. So quick spoiler alert: we're gonna finish out this list with a trifecta of thrash because Woe to the Vanquished by Warbringer is my number 3. After Empire's collapse, I was worried because they were going a new direction and it seemed like they weren't doing thrash anymore besides a couple of instances, and it's oh man, and I kind of almost forgot about Warbringer for a long time, and then they put out this album which just even songs just When the Guns Fell Silent, which is an 11-minute song, which is a little bit more of that progressive songwriting from their last album, but they make it work so much better. But then the title track, Woe to the Vanquished, is really cool. Silhouettes is like typical, just in your face thrash. And then whereas Remain Violent is, it's so simple. There's like 2 riffs that entire song, but they make it work, and it's one of the heaviest riffs, and it's just a fun time. You know, and even Spectral Asylum, Descending Blade, Divinity of Flesh. This is Warbringer proving that they still got it, that they can still make some of the best thrash albums today. Like, I would put this album up there with anything, with just about anything that the if you want to think about the old school thrash metal bands that put out. This is one of the best thrash metal albums in a while. But I do think that there are 2 better ones, at least that came out this year, especially because, I mean, they're my next 2 on my list. At number 2, I have Nightmare Logic by Power Trip. Power Trip was a band and an album that snuck underneath the radar for most of the year, and then Tyler recommended it, and I was like, hey, you should definitely listen to this because this would be your thing. And now I kick myself because I'm like, why did I not listen to this? Because it's just like, the Power Trip is the best. I think Power Trip is the best band around today at pure thrash. I mean, the title track, Nightmare Logic, that main riff is so simple, yet it's so heavy, and the whole song is like that. Same thing with Executioner's Tax, is the same kind of way. Power Trip is a band that takes this the thrash principle that most bands sort of kind of like sometimes abide by, which is the less is more kind of thing, and they do it like the whole album. Like, all of their riffs are super simple, like mostly just palm muted notes, but they make it work. I mean, Soul Sacrifice is another great song. Ruination, Crucifixation. These are like some of the best thrash metal tracks ever, and I honestly don't know if there is a better all around put together album. Like, just about every other album on this list, there's like maybe a couple spots where it dips and it's like, oh, but every single song in this album is great and justifies this being his number 2, because Power Trip is the leader right now in modern thrash, in my opinion. I don't think there's any new thrash band out there right now who is better than Power Trip. They're great, and I fucking love this album. Now, number 1. I thought this album was going to be my number 1 at the beginning of the year when it came out, and it's still the case. I still love this album. It's still probably my favorite thing to happen, and that is Creator with Gods of Violence. God, this album, I love Creator, and this album just reaffirms all of that. You know, World War Now is great, but it kind of hits everything. You know, World War Now is a great, like, opening sort of track, and then, you know, Totalitarian Terror is, you know, another Totalitarian Terror. Satan is Real. Army of Storms is like my second favorite song from this album. Hail to the Hordes. And then you have Gods of Violence, which I genuinely believe is maybe the best Creator song ever written. Like, it is so Creator, it hurts. It's got your typical Creator riffs. It's, you know, you can air guitar too a lot. It's catchy. And it just gets stuck in your head all the time, and it just balls out in your face. And yes, the back half of the album, I think, kind of dies down a little bit, but I think that even where this album suffers, it's still Creator doing what they do. And I just think especially the first 9 tracks of this album all shine. And it's just boom, here you go. Some of the best work that Creator's ever done. And I love this album. I still listen to this album all the time, especially Army of Storms, Gods of Violence. Still listen to it, and it's just, again, I think this is up there. It might not be Creator's best album, but I think it's one of Creator's best albums. And I just like, I honestly don't think there is an album that I listen to in general, an album that I listened to more this year, or an album that I enjoyed listening to more this year than this album. And kudos to Creator, because I mean, even though I didn't do a list and I wasn't really a part of the channel back then, I mean, when they put out their last album, when they put out Phantom Antichrist, in my opinion, that was the best album to come out that year. So, yeah, thank you for watching. So I hope you've been watching all of our end of the year stuff. Check out the other videos, you know, top songs, honorable mentions, top movies, top games, top TV shows, all that stuff. And don't forget to check out tomorrow Tyler's top 20 albums. And it should be a rocking good time, and then we'll see you guys into 2018. It's going to be fun, and hopefully 2018 is just as good of a year for music and everything else as 2017 was. So I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you, well, I guess in the new year.